September 14th, 1944. 0800 hours. 3 miles south of Nancy, France. Staff Sergeant Robert Callahan pressed his forehead against the rubber padding of his gunner's sight. Through the periscope, morning mist clung to the French countryside like smoke from yesterday's battle. The M4 Sherman's interior smelled of cordite, hydraulic fluid, and 4 men who hadn't bathed in 9 days. His position, cramped between the 75mm breach and the turret wall, had been his home for 11 months. 11 months of watching German armor through this 12-inch window. 11 months of calculating angles, distances, and the mathematics of survival. Iron dice sat hull down behind a stone wall, one of 18 Shermans forming a defensive line. Third Army intelligence reported German armor massing for a counterattack. Callahan's left hand rested on the turret traverse wheel. His right finger touched the trigger guard of the 75mm gun. Both hands showed burn scars from his second Sherman, destroyed in Sicily. Pink tissue ran from his left wrist to his elbow, a permanent reminder of German accuracy. Lieutenant James Kerrigan's voice crackled through the intercom. 26 years old, 3rd Commander Callahan had served under. The first 2 were buried in North Africa and Normandy, respectively. "Callahan? You awake down there?" "Yes, sir. Scanning sector." "Good," Intel says Panthers. "Maybe Tigers." Callahan's stomach tightened. The Panther tank's 88mm gun could penetrate a Sherman's frontal armor at 1,500 yards. The Sherman's 75mm gun needed to close within 500 yards to penetrate a Panther's front plate. Sometimes even that wasn't enough. The mathematics were simple and brutal. German tanks had better armor, bigger guns, superior optics. In a straight fight at range, the Sherman lost 7 times out of 10. First shot accuracy determined everything. German gunners, using superior Zeiss optics and the 88's flat trajectory, achieved 72% first-round hit probability at combat ranges. American gunners, using the 75mm gun with its pronounced arc and fixed ammunition, averaged 31%. Callahan had memorized these numbers. Every Sherman gunner had. They were whispered in tank parks, discussed over cold rations, calculated by men trying to understand why their friends burned to death in metal coffins. The 75mm gun's limitation wasn't just accuracy. It was the ammunition. Fixed rounds meant no adjustment for range. You estimated distance visually, applied Kentucky windage, and prayed. Miss the first shot and you had 8 seconds to reload. 8 seconds while the German gunner adjusted his aim. 8 seconds that usually ended with your Sherman brewing up like a Roman candle. Movement in the tree line. 800 yards. Callahan's hands moved, automatically. Muscle memory from 3 campaigns. The distinctive, sloped armor of a Panther emerged from morning shadows. Its long 88mm barrel traversed slowly, searching for targets. Target tank, 800 yards, 12 o'clock. Callahan's voice stayed flat, professional. Inside, his pulse hammered. Kerrigan responded immediately. "Gunner, identify target, range 800, load AP." Behind Callahan, Private Danny Morrison slammed an armor-piercing round into the breech. 19 years old, from Akron, Ohio. Morrison had been with iron dice for 3 weeks. The previous loader took shrapnel through his throat outside Metz. Callahan centered the target in his sight. 800 yards was long range for the 75. The shell would arc significantly. He'd need to aim high. But how high? 2 mils? 3? The Panther was stationary. But that could change in seconds. Once it spotted iron dice, the race would begin. Who fired first? Who hit first? Who lived? His mind ran calculations. 800 yards. Shell velocity 2,100 feet per second. Flight time 1.2 seconds. Account for crosswind, maybe 5 miles per hour from the west. The Panther's turret was still traversing, searching. Callahan had survived 11 months by understanding a truth the training manuals ignored. The 75mm gun was adequate. The optics were decent. The crew was trained. But none of that mattered if you couldn't hit with the first shot. And at 800 yards, with visual range estimation, first-round hits were mostly luck. He'd burned out of 3 Shermans. The first outside Kasserine Pass, February 1943, a Panzer IV's 88 punched through the turret. Callahan dove through the hatch as flames engulfed the fighting compartment. The commander and loader died screaming. The second Sherman died in Sicily, July 19, 43. Another 88, this time from a Tiger. Hit the ammunition rack. Callahan remembered the flash, the heat, waking up in a field hospital with second-degree burns covering his left arm. The third Sherman burned in Normandy's hedgerows, June 23, 1944. A hidden Panther fired from 400 yards. Point-blank range. The commander, Lieutenant Patton, was cut in half by spalling. Callahan and the crew abandoned the burning tank under machine gun fire. 3 tanks, 3 commanders, dozens of friends reduced to charred meat. And always the same problem. The Germans fired first. The Germans hit first. The Americans burned. Callahan thought about the coaxial 30 caliber machine gun mounted beside the main gun. Every 5th round was a tracer, burning phosphorus that glowed bright orange in flight. You could see exactly where the machine gun bullets impacted. The coaxial was bore-sighted to the main gun. Both weapons pointed at the same spot. Same aim point, same impact point, just different projectiles. Standard doctrine said never fire the coaxial before the main gun. Tracers revealed your position. But what good was concealment if your first shot missed? What good was doctrine if it got you killed? The Panther's turret stopped traversing. The 88mm barrel pointed directly at iron dice. 7 seconds until the German fired. Time to decide whether to follow doctrine or follow instinct. 3 weeks earlier, August 23, 1944, outside Metz, France. Just another collection of stone houses reduced to rubble by American artillery. Iron dice led the column, tracks clattering over broken cobblestones. The smell of burning wood and cordite hung thick in the August heat. Somewhere in the ruins, a dog barked incessantly. Callahan swept his periscope left to right. 600 yards visibility through smoke and dust. Every window could hide a Panzerfaust. Every pile of rubble could conceal an anti-tank gun. His shoulders ached from 12 hours of tension, muscles locked in firing position. Lieutenant Kerrigan's voice came through the intercom. "Driver, halt. Something's not right." The Sherman lurched to a stop. Behind them, 16 more tanks accordioned to a halt. The dog stopped barking. Silence fell over the destroyed village like a blanket. Then Callahan saw it. Movement in a ruined church. 500 yards, 11 o'clock. A piece of rubble fell differently than natural collapse would cause. He traversed the turret left, centered his sight on the church. The Panzer IV emerged from the ruins like a predator breaking cover. Its 75mm gun already aimed at iron dice. German gunner had been tracking them, waiting for the column to stop. "Contact tank, 500 yards, 11 o'clock." Callahan's voice cracked with urgency. Kerrigan responded instantly. "Gunner, identify target, range 500. Load AP." Morrison slammed around home, breech clanged shut. Callahan's right index finger found the main gun trigger. His left hand fine-tuned the traverse. The German tank was fully exposed now, rolling forward to improve its firing angle. 500 yards, optimal range, should be a guaranteed hit. But Callahan's hands were shaking, not from fear, from exhaustion. 72 hours without real sleep, living on Benzedrine and coffee. His vision blurred momentarily. He blinked hard, refocused. The Panzer IV's gun was elevating. The German gunner was aiming. 2 seconds until they fired. Callahan squeezed the trigger. Nothing happened. His finger had slipped to the coaxial machine gun trigger instead. 3 seconds of 30 caliber rounds sprayed toward the Panzer IV. Every 5th round a burning orange tracer, arcing through the morning air like a dotted line connecting iron dice to its target. Callahan watched the tracers impact 20 yards short and 15 yards left of the Panzer IV. Wind, drift and range. Estimation error made visible in phosphorescent orange. His mind processed the information instantly. The mental adjustment was automatic. Raise the gun 2 mils. Traverse right 1.5 mils. His finger shifted to the main gun trigger. Squeezed. The 75mm roared. The Sherman rocked backward. Through his sight, Callahan watched the armor-piercing round impact, exactly where the adjusted aim point indicated. Dead center on the Panzer IV's turret face. The German tank's ammunition detonated. The turret flew 15 feet into the air, spinning like a coin flipped by a giant's thumb. "Holy Christ!" Morrison shouted. "Direct hit!" Kerrigan's voice exploded through the intercom. "Callahan! What the hell was that? You fired the coaxial first. That's not procedure. You revealed our position before." "Sir, I hit him," Callahan interrupted. "First round, dead center." "That's not the point." "You violated, Lieutenant." Callahan's voice stayed calm. "The tracers showed me exactly where I was aiming. I saw the impact point, adjusted, and fired. 3 seconds of tracers gave me perfect range data." Silence on the intercom. Kerrigan was processing. "The coaxial is bore-sighted to the main gun," Callahan continued. "Same point of aim. The tracers show exactly where the 75 will hit. It's like having a ranging shot without wasting a main gun round." "But doctrine says," "Doctrine gets people killed, sir. I've been in 3 tanks that burned because we missed the first shot. This works." Behind iron dice, other tank commanders were discussing what they'd just witnessed over their radios. Sergeant Carlos Martinez, commanding Lucky Strike, had watched the entire engagement through his periscope. He'd seen Callahan's tracers arc short and left, seen the immediate adjustment, seen the first-round kill. Martinez called his gunner, Corporal William Fletcher. "Fletcher, you see what Iron Dice just did?" "Yes, Sergeant. Fired cokes first. Tracers showed the impact point." "Think that would work?" "Makes sense. Like walking artillery fire, but faster." Similar conversations happened in Texas, Rose, Steel Thunder, and Detroit Hammer. 8 tank crews had witnessed something that violated every principle they'd been taught at Fort Knox. But it worked. In combat, that was all that mattered. That evening, during maintenance, Callahan found himself surrounded by other gunners. They gathered in the shadow of Iron Dice, speaking in low voices while officers attended briefings. "Show us again," Fletcher said. "Exactly what you did," Callahan demonstrated with an empty weapon. "Finger here on the coaxial trigger. When the commander calls the target, squeeze off a 3-second burst. Watch the tracers through your sight. They'll show you exactly where you're hitting. High, low, left, right. Your brain calculates the adjustment automatically. But that reveals your position," Corporal James Thompson from Texas, Rose objected. Says, "The manual was written by people who never faced a Panther at 800 yards, Callahan replied. "Yes, tracers reveal your position, but you know what else reveals your position? Firing the main gun and missing. Then you're reloading for 8 seconds while Hans lines up his second shot. Which one do you think gets you killed faster?" The mathematics were compelling. 3 seconds of coaxial fire to guarantee first-round accuracy versus 8 seconds to reload after a missed shot. 5 seconds difference. In tank combat, 5 seconds was the difference between victory and burning alive. Private Morrison added his perspective. "From the loader's position, it works better. When Callahan fires the cokes first, I have an extra 3 seconds to ensure the round is properly seated. No rush, no fumbling. The timing is actually better." Over the next 4 days, Callahan refined the technique. He discovered optimal burst lengths for different ranges. 3 seconds at 500 yards, 4 seconds at 800, 5 seconds at 1,000. The longer bursts at extended range gave tracers time to arc and show true impact points. He learned to read tracer patterns in different conditions. Crosswinds pushed them left or right. Headwinds made them drop short. Tailwinds carried them long. Each burst was a physics lesson made visible in burning phosphorus. On August 27th, Callahan engaged a Stug assault gun at 700 yards. 3-second coaxial burst showed impact right on target. No adjustment needed. Main gun round destroyed the Stug instantly. August 28th. Panther, at 900 yards. 4-second burst showed shots falling short. Elevated 3 mils. First round kill. August 29th. 2 Panzer IVs at 600 yards. Engaged both using the tracer method. Both destroyed with first round hits. Total engagement time, 45 seconds. Word spread through unofficial channels. Tank crews talked during resupply. Maintenance. Sergeants mentioned it to other maintenance sergeants. By September 1st, 19 crews in 3rd Army were experimenting with what they called Callahan's crossing from coaxial to main gun based on tracer indication. The technique violated Field Manual 1733. It contradicted everything taught at the Armored Force School. It revealed positions prematurely. It wasted machine gun ammunition. It also worked. And now, September 14th, facing a Panther at 800 yards, Callahan's finger rested on the coaxial trigger. 3 weeks of combat had proven the technique. 7 successful engagements. 7 first-round kills. The Panther's gun was almost aligned. 2 seconds until it fired. Time to prove the discovery could work when it mattered most. September 1st through 7th, 1944. The road to Nancy. 7 days that would transform Callahan from a gunner with a trick into something else entirely. A craftsman of calculated violence. Each engagement became a lesson. Each destroyed German tank added data to his growing understanding of ballistic truth made visible through burning phosphorus. The first refinement came September 1st. Dawn patrol near Commercy. Iron dice leading 3 Shermans through morning fog. Visibility down to 400 yards. A Panzer IV materialized from the mist like a ghost becoming solid. Callahan's hands moved without conscious thought. 3-second burst. The tracers disappeared into fog before showing impact. Useless. The German tank fired first. The round screamed past Iron Dice's turret, missing by inches. Loading AP. Morrison's hands flew through the reload sequence. Callahan adjusted on instinct alone, fired blind. Missed. The Panzer IV's second shot gouged a furrow across Iron Dice's frontal armor. Kerrigan screamed for smoke. The driver popped canisters. Iron Dice retreated behind a wall of white phosphorus. That evening, Callahan sat with Morrison, discussing the failure. "Tracers don't work in heavy fog," Morrison said. "Can't see the impact." "No," Callahan corrected. "I fired too short a burst. In limited visibility, you need longer bursts to track the full arc. 5 seconds minimum in fog. Maybe 6. He was right. September 2nd. Morning fog again. This time a Stug at 300 yards. Callahan fired a 6-second burst. Even in fog, the longer stream of tracers showed impact point before visibility failed. Adjustment made. First round kill. The second refinement involved trigger discipline. Callahan's finger position became crucial. He developed a 2-stage grip. Index finger pad resting on the coaxial trigger, ready to roll forward onto the main gun trigger in one smooth motion. No fumbling. No hesitation. Tracers to adjustment to kill in one flowing sequence. Morrison adapted too. As loader, he learned to read Callahan's body language. The slight tensing of shoulders meant target acquired. The forward lean meant ranging in, progress. Morrison would have the next round ready before Callahan called for it. They developed a rhythm. Spot, burst, adjust, fire, load. The sequence took 11 seconds total. Faster than most crews could reload after a missed first shot. September 3rd brought the third refinement. Range cards. Callahan started keeping detailed notes on tracer behavior at different ranges. 400 yards. Tracers flew almost flat, minimal arc. 600 yards. Noticeable drop. 2 mil correction standard. 800 yards. Pronounced arc. 3 to 4 mil elevation needed. 1,000 yards. Maximum effective range. Tracers barely visible at impact. 5 mil minimum elevation. He drew diagrams on the back of ammunition crates. Trajectory curves annotated with wind corrections. Morrison memorized them during downtime. Other loaders started copying the diagrams, passing them through the battalion like underground textbooks. September 4th. The technique saved iron dice during an ambush. 3 Panthers, positioned in enfilade, 700 yards. They opened fire simultaneously. The Sherman to iron dice's left, brass monkey, exploded immediately. The tank to the right, Houston rocket, took a round through the engine deck. Callahan didn't have time for careful ranging. He sprayed 5-second bursts at each Panther in sequence. Not trying to hit, just trying to see where his rounds were falling relative to each target. The tracers created a map of missed distances. High on the first Panther, short on the second, dead on for the third. He engaged the third Panther first. 1 round, 1 kill. Then adjusted for the second. Elevated 2 mils. Another kill. The first Panther, seeing 2 companions destroyed in 20 seconds, retreated without firing another shot. Battalion intelligence officers studied the engagement that evening. 3 Panthers versus 1 Sherman should have been a massacre. Instead, iron dice destroyed 2 and drove off the third. The intelligence summary credited superior gunnery under extreme pressure. They didn't understand it was the tracers that made the difference. September 5th introduced weather complications. Rain started at noon. Heavy drops that turned the French countryside into mud soup. Callahan discovered rain affected tracer visibility. Water droplets diffused the phosphorus glow. He had to fire longer bursts, 7 or 8 seconds, to track impact points through rain. But rain also meant mud on enemy optics. German gunners struggled with fogged sights and water-streaked lenses. Callahan's tracers cut through rain like lighthouse beams. 3 engagements that afternoon, 3 kills, all in driving rain that should have made accurate gunnery impossible. The crew chief, Sergeant Paul Weber, noticed iron dice's unusual ammunition consumption. "Callahan, you're burning through 30 caliber at 3 times the normal rate." "Yes, Sergeant. That's not sustainable. Supply can't." "How many tanks has iron dice killed this week?" Weber checked his notebook. 9, confirmed. "How many rounds of 75mm did we use?" 12 rounds. 12 rounds for 9 kills. What's the battalion average? Weber didn't need to check. Everyone knew. 43 rounds per kill. So I'm using extra machine gun ammo to save main gun rounds. Which one's harder to resupply? Weber had no answer. The math was undeniable. September 6th brought the most important refinement: teaching others. 4 gunners approached Callahan that evening. Not asking any more, demanding. "Teach us properly," Sergeant Anthony DeLuca said. Not demonstrations, real training. Callahan spent 3 hours that night running an impromptu school. Using iron dice as a training aid, he walked the gunners through every aspect: finger position, burst duration, reading tracer arc, mental calculation of corrections. The psychology of accepting revealed position in exchange for guaranteed accuracy. "Fear makes you rush," Callahan explained. "You see a panther, you want to shoot immediately. But 3 seconds of tracers can save your life. Those 3 seconds feel like forever when an 88 is pointing at you. But missing your first shot? That's actual forever. Because you'll be dead." He taught them to read environmental factors. Wind speed from smoke drift. Range estimation from terrain features. How trees at different distances looked through the gunner's sight. How to use destroyed vehicles as range markers. Private Morrison added loader-specific insights. When your gunner fires the cokes, don't just stand there. Use those seconds. Double-check the round is seated. Prepare the next shell. Watch through your periscope for additional threats. Those 3 seconds are gifts. Use them. By September 7th, 11 gunners in the battalion were using the technique. Not all successfully. Corporal Richard Hayes tried it against a Stug. Fired too short a burst. Couldn't read the impact. Missed his main gunshot. The Stug's return fire killed his driver. It doesn't always work, Hayes told Callahan that evening, voice bitter with loss. Nothing always works, Callahan replied. But it works more often than guessing. Your driver's dead. I'm sorry. But how many drivers are alive because their gunners hit first? The mathematics were cold but real. 11 gunners using the technique, 67% first-round hit rate, compared to 31% battalion average. That translated to lives. Crews who went home instead of burning. September 7th ended with Callahan writing in his journal. He kept it in his breast pocket, wrapped in oilcloth. Short entries, technical notes mostly. But that night he wrote, "The tracers tell the truth. Every burst shows what is, not what we hope. 3 seconds of honesty before the killing shot. Tomorrow we reach Nancy. Germans are dug in. Panthers and Tigers reported. We'll need every trick learned this week." Morrison read over his shoulder. "You think we'll make it?" Callahan looked at his loader. 19 years old, 3 weeks in combat, already older than his years. We'll make it because we don't guess anymore. We know. And now, back to September 14th, the Panther's gun almost level, Callahan's finger on the coaxial trigger. Everything learned in 7 days compressed into this moment. September 14th, 1944. 0800 hours and 4 seconds. Callahan's finger squeezed the coaxial trigger. The .30 caliber machine gun hammered out its message. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 seconds of tracers arcing across 800 yards of French farmland. Each phosphorus round drew a line through morning air, showing the exact path his 75mm shell would follow. Through his gun sight, Callahan watched the orange dots impact 20 yards short and 10 yards right of the Panther. The crosswind was stronger than expected. 800 yards amplified every error. His mind calculated automatically. Elevation, add 3.5 mils. Windage, left 1.5 mils. The Panther's gunner had seen the tracers. The long 88mm barrel was rising, aligning on iron dice. 2 seconds until the German fired. Callahan's finger rolled forward onto the main gun trigger. The adjustment was pure muscle memory. His left hand had already cranked the elevation wheel. His shoulder pressed into the sight mount. Every piece of data from a week of refinement compressed into this moment. The 75 roared. Inside iron dice, the breech slammed back, ejecting hot brass. Smoke filled the fighting compartment. Morrison was already loading the next round. But Callahan kept his eye pressed to the sight, watching the armor-piercing shell fly toward its target. 1.2 seconds of flight time at 800 yards felt like minutes. The shell struck the Panther exactly where the turret met the hull. The shot trap. A weakness in the Panther's otherwise superb armor design. The round penetrated, detonated inside. Through his sight, Callahan saw the flash of internal explosion. Smoke poured from the Panther's hatches. The turret stopped moving. Target destroyed, Callahan reported, voice flat. No celebration, no emotion. Already traversing to scan for additional threats. Kerrigan's voice came through the intercom. Outstanding shot, Callahan. That was 800 yards minimum. 820. Sir. The tracers showed exact range. Behind iron dice, the entire American line had watched the engagement. 17 Sherman crews saw Callahan's tracers arc out, saw the adjustment, saw the first-round kill on a Panther at extreme range. In the tank called Wolverine, Sergeant Michael Kowalski turned to his gunner. "You see that? 4 seconds of coax, then boom! Panther dead." "I saw it, Sarge. That's 3 times this week iron dice has killed with first shot at range." The radio net crackled with traffic. Battalion. Command wanted to know who had engaged. Other tanks reported negative contact. The German attack hadn't materialized yet. Just the one Panther, probably a reconnaissance probe. But that single engagement had been witnessed by over 60 men. Word would spread. At 0815 hours, Iron Dice received orders to advance. Scout toward Nancy's outskirts. Determine German defensive positions. Callahan checked his ammunition. Morrison reported the count: 42 rounds of 75mm, 1800 rounds of 30 caliber. Running low on Coke's ammo, Morrison noted. We'll get more, Callahan replied. Always do. Iron Dice rolled forward, leading 2 other Shermans. The destroyed Panther smoked in the morning sun. As they passed it, Callahan could see the precise entry hole where his shell had penetrated, exactly where the tracers had indicated after adjustment. 300 yards past the destroyed Panther, Callahan spotted movement, a German anti-tank gun, concealed in a hedgerow, 400 yards. The crew was frantically traversing toward Iron Dice. At gun! 400 yards! 2 o'clock! This time Callahan didn't hesitate. 3-second burst of coaxial. The tracers walked right onto the gun position. No adjustment needed. The main gun fired immediately. The high-explosive round detonated among the German gun crew. Bodies and equipment scattered like toys thrown by an angry child. Total engagement time: 5 seconds. First round kill. Lieutenant Kerrigan called for a halt. They were approaching phase line Silver, the designated limit of advance, without additional support. But the Germans were pulling back. The destruction of the Panther and anti-tank gun had triggered a withdrawal. Through his periscope, Callahan watched German infantry retreating through the orchards. Half-tracks, loading equipment. A tactical withdrawal, not a rout, but they were giving ground. At 0930, battalion command arrived. Major, Harrison himself, walking up to Iron Dice with his aide. Which tank killed that Panther? Kerrigan dismounted. We did, sir. Sergeant Callahan's shooting. Harrison looked at the destroyed Panther, then back at Iron Dice's position. That's 800 yards minimum. First round kill? Yes, sir. How? Kerrigan hesitated. He knew the tracer technique violated doctrine, but he also knew it worked. Callahan spoke up from his hatch. Permission to demonstrate, Major? Harrison nodded. Callahan traversed toward a destroyed German truck 600 yards away. Watch the tracers, sir. He fired a 3-second burst. The orange tracers showed impact 10 yards left of the truck. Callahan adjusted and fired the main gun. The high-explosive round hit the truck dead center, blowing it apart. The coaxial shows me where I'm aiming, sir. I adjust based on tracer impact, then fire. No guessing. Harrison studied Callahan for a long moment. That's not standard procedure. No, sir. How long have you been doing this? 3 weeks, sir. How many kills using this method? Callahan thought. 16 confirmed, sir. All first or second round hits. Harrison turned to his aide. Make a note. I want a full report on this technique. Get me statistics from Sergeant Callahan's engagement records. He looked back at Callahan. Keep doing what works, Sergeant. We'll sort out the paperwork later. After Harrison left, other tank commanders approached Iron Dice. They wanted details, exact finger positions, burst durations, mental calculation methods. Callahan found himself conducting another impromptu class beside his tank. The key is accepting the 3 seconds of vulnerability, he explained. When you fire that coax, every German in 1,000 yards knows exactly where you are. But they know anyway when you fire the main gun. Difference is, with tracers, you hit what you're aiming at. Sergeant William Patterson from the tank Thunderbolt asked the critical question. What about Tigers? Their armor's thicker. First round might not penetrate even with perfect aim. Callahan had thought about this. With Tigers, the tracers tell you something else. They show you if you can penetrate at that range. If your tracers are dropping heavy, you're too far. You need to close distance. Better to know that before wasting main gun rounds. The mathematics were evolving. Not just hit probability, but penetration probability, knowing when to shoot and when to maneuver. By noon, September 14th, Iron Dice had pushed another 2,000 yards toward Nancy. 3 more engagements. A Stug at 500 yards. 2 Panzer IVs at 600. All destroyed with first-round hits after tracer ranging. Morrison was counting ammunition obsessively. 38 rounds of 75 remaining. 900 rounds of 30 caliber. Half load on both, Callahan noted, but 6 kills today. The ratio was extraordinary. 6 kills for 4 main gun rounds expended. The other 2 rounds had been harassment fire on suspected positions. That afternoon, Callahan received word that 7 more tank crews had requested training on the tracer technique. Battalion S3 wanted a formal demonstration. The method that had started as an accident was becoming doctrine through sheer effectiveness. But the Germans were learning too. Radio intercepts suggested they had noticed the pattern. American tanks firing machine guns before main guns, giving away positions, but hitting with unprecedented accuracy. A captured German tank commander, brought in that evening, confirmed it through interrogation. Your gunners have learned something new. The orange tracers. Then the killing shot. We've started moving immediately when we see tracers. Don't wait for the main gun. The adaptation had begun. The Germans were developing counter-tactics. But Callahan had expected this. No advantage lasted forever in war. You innovated, the enemy adapted, you innovated again. That night, Callahan wrote in his journal, 16 kills using tracer method. Germans starting to recognize pattern, need new refinements. Maybe false bursts to trigger movement, then real ranging burst when they're moving. Motion leads to mistakes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The push into Nancy proper. Urban combat where ranges would be shorter, angles stranger, decisions faster. But for today, the Panther at 800 yards had proven everything. The tracers told the truth. And truth, made visible in burning phosphorus, killed enemy tanks. September 18th, 1944. 3rd Army Headquarters, temporary building commandeered from French municipal authority. Callahan stood at attention in a room that smelled of coffee and cigarette smoke. 3 officers sat behind a folding table covered with reports. Major Harrison, who'd witnessed the demonstration. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Mitchell from Division G3. And Colonel James Bradley from Ordnance Corps, sent, specifically from Army Headquarters to investigate irregularities in gunnery procedures. Bradley spoke first. Sergeant Callahan, do you know why you're here? Yes, sir. The tracer ranging method. The unauthorized modification of firing doctrine. Bradley's voice carried the weight of pre-war army. Regulations above all. Field Manual. 1733 clearly states that main armament should be employed first in tank versus tank engagement. Coaxial machine guns are for suppression of infantry and soft targets. Yes, sir. I've read the manual. Yet you've chosen to disregard it. I've chosen to hit German tanks with my first shot, sir. Mitchell interrupted. Show them the statistics, Harrison. Harrison opened a folder. Since August 23rd, Sergeant Callahan has destroyed 21 enemy vehicles, 16 tanks, 5 assault guns. Average rounds expended per kill, 1.3. Battalion average for the same period, 4.7 rounds per kill. Bradley wasn't impressed. Individual statistics don't justify. It's not just him anymore, Harrison continued. 19 crews have adopted his method. Their collective first-round hit probability has increased from 31% to 67%. That's 140% improvement. Achieved by violating established doctrine, Bradley countered. What happens when every gunner starts making up their own procedures? Chaos. Breakdown of standardization. Inability to coordinate operations. Callahan remained at attention, silent, but his jaw clenched. Mitchell noticed. You have something to add, Sergeant? Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. Colonel Bradley, when was the last time you were in a tank facing a Panther? Bradley's face reddened. That's irrelevant. It's completely relevant, sir. The manual was written in 1941, before we faced Panthers, before we knew about Tiger tanks. Before we learned that German optics could pick us off, at 1,000 yards while we're still guessing range. Callahan pulled a notebook from his pocket. His hands showed white knuckles as he opened it. I've kept records, sir. Every tank in my platoon that followed standard doctrine in the last month is dead or damaged. Every single one. The crews that adopted tracer ranging have an 80% survival rate. Those aren't just numbers, sir. Those are 19 men who went home to their families instead of burning alive. Silence filled the room. Even Bradley had no immediate response. Harrison spoke carefully. The concern from Army Command is that widespread adoption without proper training could lead to increased casualties. Premature position revelation. Our position is revealed the moment we fire the main gun anyway, Callahan interrupted, forgetting protocol. The difference is whether we hit or miss. 3 seconds of tracers for a guaranteed kill versus 8 seconds of reloading after a miss while the German lines up his second shot. The math isn't complicated. Bradley stood. Sergeant, you're dismissed. We'll discuss this matter and inform you of our decision. Outside the headquarters, Callahan found 12 gunners waiting. Word had spread about the inquiry. They'd come from different battalions, some travelling 20 miles to be there. What did they say? Sergeant Tony DeLuca asked. They're discussing it. Discussing whether saving lives is worth breaking rules, Corporal Fletcher spat. Typical. That evening, while officers debated, the underground network activated. Tank crews had developed their own communication system. Maintenance sergeants passed messages. Supply drivers carried information between units. Medics shared observations from different battalions. The network had a name now, the School of Truth. Because tracers told the truth. In a destroyed barn 5 miles from headquarters, 23 gunners gathered. Callahan wasn't supposed to be there. He'd been ordered to remain at battalion pending the inquiry decision. But he came anyway. They want to stop us, he told the assembled gunners. Not because the method doesn't work, because it wasn't their idea, because it violates their precious manual. He demonstrated the technique again, using a salvaged German tank as a target. The other gunners practiced dry runs, rehearsing the finger roll from coaxial to main gun. Loaders practiced timing their movements to the new rhythm. Sergeant Paul Anderson from 2nd Battalion raised a concern. My CO says if I use tracers first, he'll have me court-martialed. Then don't let him see, another gunner suggested. He stays in the turret, right? Doesn't look through your sight. Fire the cokes and main gun close together. Make it sound like one engagement. They developed concealment methods, ways to hide the technique from officers while still using it. Quick bursts that could be explained as suppressive fire, log entries that omitted the tracer phase. Creative, after-action reports. The loader network had their own gathering. Morrison led it, teaching 18 other loaders the optimal positioning for the new timing. Your gunner needs those 3 seconds to process what the tracers show, Morrison explained. Use that time, check your next round, watch for secondary targets, call out threats. Don't just stand there waiting. Private Joseph Williams from 7th Battalion asked, what if our gunner won't try it? Then you find a way to suggest it. Say you need extra seconds to properly seat rounds. Say you've heard other crews having success with suppressive cokes fire. Don't call it tracer ranging if the officers are listening. September 20th. The official decision came down. Colonel Bradley's memo was 3 pages of military bureaucracy. The key paragraph read, while individual initiatives in combat are commendable, standardized doctrine exists for operational coherence. The prescribed engagement sequence remains: main armament, first. Supporting weapons, secondary. Deviation from Field Manual 1733 is not authorized. But there was a footnote. Added by Mitchell or Harrison, Callahan couldn't tell. Unit commanders retain discretion for tactical adaptations based on immediate combat requirements. That footnote was the loophole. Tactical adaptation. Immediate combat requirements. Vague enough to provide cover. Major Harrison called Callahan to his tent that evening. The technique is not officially approved, You understand?
Yes, sir. But if, in the heat of combat, a gunner happens to fire a burst of coaxial before engaging with main armament, and that sequence results in successful target engagement.
Well,
Harrison shrugged. Combat is chaotic. Things happen out of sequence. Callahan understood. Official denial, unofficial permission. The network adapted to the new reality. The school of truth went deeper underground but spread wider. Gunners taught gunners. Loaders taught loaders. Knowledge passed through demonstrations disguised as routine maintenance. They developed code words. Checking alignment meant practicing the tracer technique. Bore sight verification meant teaching someone new. Ammunition conservation training meant full tactical instruction. By September 25th, 47 crews across 3rd Army were using the method. They didn't log it, they didn't report it. But German tank kill rates were climbing steadily. A captured German report from September 24th noted, American tank gunnery has improved markedly. First-round hits increasing. Tactical adjustment necessary. Recommend immediate displacement after observing tracer fire from American tanks. The Germans were adapting faster than American high command. They recognized the threat and developed counters while colonels debated manual violations. Callahan kept training crews in secret. Each night, different location. Barns, destroyed buildings, forest clearings. He'd become something between instructor and revolutionary, teaching survival disguised as rebellion. September 26th. News arrived that made everything else irrelevant. Operation Market Garden had failed. The push through Holland stalled. 3rd Army would be in heavy combat for months, not weeks. Every crew would need every advantage. That night, Callahan wrote, They can deny the method officially, but every tank saved by tracers proves them wrong. Every crew that goes home alive is a victory over their manual. The truth burns bright at 2,300 feet per second. Let them try to regulate that. September 27th, 1944, 06:45 hours. Near Aracourt, France. Morning fog hung over the Lorraine countryside like a burial shroud. Visibility down to 200 yards. Perfect conditions for an ambush. Terrible conditions for tank combat. Callahan sat in Iron Dice's gunner position, listening to the radio traffic. 18 Shermans from his battalion, spread across a 3-mile front. 7 crews were using the tracer method. 11 still followed official doctrine. The plan was simple. Hold the line near Aracourt. Stop the German counteroffensive. Intelligence reported 12 enemy tanks approaching. Probably Panthers, maybe Tigers. Nobody knew for sure until they appeared from the fog. Morrison checked ammunition for the 3rd time. 48 rounds AP, 2,000 rounds 30 caliber. Going to need all of it, Callahan replied. At 0700 hours, the Germans attacked. Not 12 tanks, 24. 2 full companies of Panthers and Panzer IVs, supported by infantry. They came through the fog like ghosts, using the limited visibility to close distance. The first contact came on the left flank. Sergeant Martinez, in lucky strike, spotted a Panther at 150 yards. Point-blank range. He followed doctrine, fired his main gun immediately. Missed. The Panther's return shot punched through Lucky Strike's turret. Martinez and his loader burned to death before they could escape. Callahan heard Martinez die over the radio, heard the screams, heard the ammunition cooking off. Contact front, Kerrigan's voice. Multiple targets. Through his sight, Callahan saw them. 3 Panthers, emerging from fog at 300 yards. Behind them, more shapes in the mist. Traditional doctrine would say engage the closest threat immediately. But Callahan had learned something about fog combat on September 1st. He fired a 6-second burst of coaxial, sweeping across all 3 targets. The tracers created a phosphorescent map in the fog, showing exact positions and ranges. The lead Panther was closing fast, 250 yards. The second held at 300. The third was actually a Panzer IV, misidentified in the fog, at 350. Callahan engaged the lead Panther first. The adjustment from his tracer pattern was minimal. 1 round, center mass. The Panther lurched to a stop, smoke pouring from its engine compartment. Morrison loaded. 3 seconds. The second Panther fired at iron dice. The round screamed past, missing by feet. The German gunner hadn't accounted for fog's effect on optical ranging. Callahan fired another burst. 4 seconds. Tracers walking onto the second Panther. Main gun. Kill. The Panzer IV was retreating, disappearing back into fog. Callahan let it go. Bigger threats emerging. To iron dice's right, Thunderbolt was engaging 2 Panthers. Sergeant Patterson had adopted the tracer method 3 days ago. Through the fog, Callahan could see his tracers arcing out, creating brief orange lines in the mist. Then the boom of his main gun. 1 Panther destroyed. Then more tracers. Another boom. Second Panther killed. But on the left, where Martinez had died, the traditional doctrine tanks were being slaughtered. Houston Rocket took 2 hits, brewing up immediately. Steel Victory fired 3 times at a Panther 100 yards away. Missed all. 3 shots. The Panther's reply cut Steel Victory in half. The radio net was chaos. Commanders screaming for support, gunners calling targets, loaders reporting ammunition states. Through it all, Callahan could track which tanks were using tracers by the pattern of their engagements. Quick bursts followed by accurate main gunfire versus the desperate rapid firing of crews trying to hit through guesswork. 07:15. The first wave broke. 8 German tanks destroyed. But 3rd Platoon, all traditional doctrine crews, had ceased to exist. 4 Shermans burning, 20 men dead. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell arrived at the battlefield at 07:30, while crews were still counting casualties. He found Callahan beside iron dice, helping pull wounded from a burning Sherman. Report, Sergeant. 4 tanks lost from 3rd Platoon, all standard doctrine crews. 7 tanks from 1st and 2nd Platoons engaged successfully using tracer ranging. 8 German tanks destroyed. Mitchell did the math. So, crews using your method. 7 tanks, 8 kills, 0 losses. Callahan finished. The traditional crews, 11 tanks, 2 kills, 4 losses. The evidence was becoming undeniable. But the battle wasn't over. At 0800, the Germans attacked again, this time with artillery support. Shells rained down, forcing Shermans to move. Movement meant losing prepared positions. Movement meant engaging while rolling, the hardest shot in tank combat. A Panther appeared on Iron Dice's flank. 400 yards, both tanks moving. Traditional gunnery would call this an impossible shot. Callahan fired a 5-second burst while Iron Dice bounced over rough ground. The tracers showed wild dispersion, shots scattered by movement. But the pattern revealed a truth. Leading the target by 3 tank lengths would compensate for both vehicles' motion. Morrison held on as Iron Dice lurched. Loaded! Callahan fired at the pre-calculated lead point. The shell intercepted the Panther perfectly. Frontal penetration. Catastrophic kill. Jesus Christ, Kerrigan breathed. You hit a moving target while we were moving, at 400 yards. In fog. The tracers showed the solution, Callahan replied. Just had to read them right. By 0900, the battle had become a demonstration. The 7 crews using tracer ranging were hunting German tanks through the fog, using tracers like searchlights, finding targets, adjusting, killing. The traditional doctrine crews, what remained of them, were reduced to defensive fighting, shooting at muzzle flashes, hoping for luck. Sergeant Anderson from 2nd Battalion had learned the method just 2 days ago. He engaged a Tiger at 600 yards. 6-second burst showed his regular AP wouldn't penetrate at that range. He called for HVAP, high-velocity armor piercing, saved for Tigers. Second burst confirmed the trajectory. Main gun fired. The Tiger's turret erupted in flames. First Tiger kill, Anderson reported over the net. Tracers showed me I needed special ammunition before I wasted regular rounds. The technique was evolving even during combat. Not just ranging, but ammunition selection. Not just accuracy, but penetration assessment. At 0930, the Germans withdrew. They'd lost 18 tanks. The Americans lost 6, all from traditional doctrine crews. Mitchell gathered the surviving tank commanders. 9 of the original 18. I'm ordering all crews to adopt the tracer ranging method immediately. I don't care what headquarters says. I don't care what the manual says. What I care about is my men surviving. He turned to Callahan. You're on temporary duty as battalion gunnery instructor. Train every gunner we have. I want 100% adoption within 72 hours. Sir, Colonel Bradley specifically prohibited. Colonel Bradley isn't watching his men burn to death. I am. Bradley can court-martial me if he wants. But my crews are going to live. That afternoon, Callahan found himself teaching 30 gunners in a destroyed warehouse. Not hiding anymore. Not secret meetings. Official battalion training, even if division didn't approve. He showed them the statistics from the morning battle. Tracer method crews. 8 kills, 0 losses. Traditional doctrine crews. 2 kills, 6 losses. The math speaks for itself, Callahan said. You can follow the manual and die, or you can use tracers and live. A young gunner, Private Timothy Shaw, just arrived as a replacement, raised his hand. Sergeant, what if the Germans develop counter-tactics? They already have, Callahan admitted. They're moving after seeing tracers, but a moving target just means you need to read the pattern differently. The tracers still tell the truth. You just have to learn their language. That evening, Callahan received word that other battalions had monitored the battle, seen the difference in survival rates. 3 battalion commanders were requesting immediate training for their crews. The revolution was spreading faster than doctrine could contain it. Mathematics had overcome bureaucracy. 8 kills, 0 losses versus 2 kills, 6 losses. No amount of regulatory compliance could argue with those numbers. In his journal that night, Callahan wrote, "Today proved everything, not in theory but in blood. The crews who used tracers went home. The ones who followed doctrine died. If that's not proof enough for headquarters, nothing will be." Tomorrow, he would train another 30 gunners. The day after, 30 more. Each one learning to read the truth written in burning phosphorus. Each one improving their odds of survival from 31% to 67%. The Battle of Aracourt had become the proving ground, and the proof was written in destroyed German steel and living American crews. October 19th, 1944, Patton's headquarters. Callahan faced the legendary general across a map-covered table. "You're the sergeant teaching gunners to violate doctrine," Patton stated. "Yes, sir. Your tracer method achieves 3-to-1 kill ratios. Standard doctrine barely breaks even. Explain." 3 seconds of tracers shows exactly where the main gun will hit. Sir, first round accuracy jumps from 31 to 67%. Patton turned to his intelligence officer. "The Germans? They're displacing immediately after seeing our tracers. They've adapted faster than our own command." Patton's decision was immediate. "You're now senior gunnery instructor for 3rd Army. Develop a 3-day course. Train every gunner within 30 days. We'll call it modified ranging technique. Sir, Colonel Bradley. Bradley commands logistics, not 3rd Army. Your results speak louder than regulations." The training program launched October 25th. Day 1. Theory and static practice. Day 2. Dynamic engagements. Day 3. Combat simulation. Old habits died hard. Sergeant Thompson, 15 months in combat, resisted. Callahan demonstrated both methods side by side. Thompson needed 45 seconds for 3 hits. Callahan achieved the same in 22 seconds using tracers. By October 30th, 96 gunners were trained, plus 12 new instructors to spread the technique exponentially. Then Bradley himself arrived. Watched the training. Saw the results. I owe you an apology, Sergeant. 43% reduction in losses. 28% increase in kills. Army Command wants you at Fort Knox to standardize this army-wide. November 3rd brought urgency. The Siegfried Line offensive, in 72 hours. Patton ordered every gunner qualified immediately. 24-hour training cycles. November 5th, 217 gunners trained. 94% of 3rd Army's tank force. The doctrine revolution was complete. 75 days from accidental discovery to official adoption. Tomorrow, they would breach the Siegfried Line with tracers lighting the way. May 8, 1945, war in Europe ended. Callahan's final tally, 37 confirmed kills. Iron Dice survived 312 days of combat. Only Sherman crew in the battalion with all original members alive. The statistics told the story. Modified ranging technique saved an estimated 300 American tanks. 300 crews. 1,500 men who went home instead of burning. 1946. The technique entered official Army doctrine. Korea, 1951. Updated for new tanks. Same principle. Vietnam, 1968. Adapted for M60 tanks. Tracers still showing truth. Callahan returned to Detroit. Worked at Chrysler tank plant until 1985. Never talked about the war except at annual Iron Dice reunions. Morrison, Kerrigan, the driver, the bow gunner, all survived because one gunner fired backwards. 2003. Callahan died, age 81. His journal donated to Patton Museum, Fort Knox. Final entry, September 1944. The tracers tell truth. 3 seconds of orange light before the killing shot. That's all. Simple as matches crossing. The coaxial machine gun from Iron Dice sits in the museum. Plaque reads, "This weapon saved more American lives than any main gun in the European theater. 3 seconds of tracers. 300 tanks saved. Truth burns bright at 2,300 feet per second.